Chapter 1. The photo arrives. Elena Carter was sitting in her office. It was a quiet Monday morning. The sun was bright. The sky was blue. Her coffee was hot. Everything felt normal. Her desk was clean. Her phone was off. The only sound was the soft ticking of the wall clock. She looked at her laptop screen and checked emails. Nothing strange. Nothing new. Then her assistant walked in. She held a brown envelope. "This came for you," she said. Elena looked up. "Who sent it?" she asked. The assistant shook her head. "There's no name, no stamp. Someone left it at the front desk." Elena took the envelope. It was plain. There was no name, no writing, no return address, just one photo inside. She slowly pulled it out. The moment she saw the photo, her hands stopped. Her eyes went wide. She dropped her coffee cup. The photo was simple. Two women stood side by side. Both were smiling. One of them was Elena, but she didn't remember taking that photo. The other woman made her heart stop. It was Riley, her best friend, her childhood friend, the friend who had died 12 years ago. Elena stood up. Her legs shook. Her breath became fast. She looked at the photo again. It was clear. It was fresh. Riley looked healthy. She looked alive. She was wearing a white jacket. Elena was standing next to her. They were in front of a small wooden cabin. The trees behind them looked green. A small lake was also visible. The photo had a date. It said, "Taken, yesterday." Elena sat down. Her fingers touched her lips. She could not speak. She could not think. She stared at the photo. Her heart was beating fast. "This is not possible," she whispered. "Riley is gone. Riley died 12 years ago." She picked up the envelope again. It was empty. No letter, no message, just that one photo. Her hands were shaking. She looked at the photo again and again. She tried to remember that moment, but her mind was blank. She had no memory of it, not even a small piece. She touched her own face in the pic. Tour! It looked like her. Same hair, same smile. But she didn't remember smiling like that. She didn't remember that place. She didn't remember that day. "Who sent this?" she whispered. She looked at the clock. The minute hand moved slowly. Time was still moving. But her world had stopped. Chapter 2. The Year I Forgot. Elena sat alone in her bedroom. The photo was still in her hand. She looked at it again. It still felt real. Too real. Riley was smiling. Elena was smiling too, but she had no memory of it. Nothing at all. She touched her forehead. "Why don't I remember this?" she asked herself. She closed her eyes and tried to think. Her mind felt empty. No sound. No picture. Just silence. She stood up and opened her closet. She took out an old box. It was full of photo albums. Some were from her school days. Some from college. She found pictures of her and Riley, from birthdays, trips, and their last office party. Those memories were clear. She remembered the cake, the songs, the jokes. She could almost hear Riley's laugh. But after that, nothing. She searched for photos from the year she turned 30. There were none. She checked her old phone. No messages from that year. No emails. No social posts. It was all quiet, as if that year didn't exist. Her heart began to race. She looked at her ID card. Her birthday was written clearly, June 12th. She did the math. "I turned 30 12 years ago," she whispered, "but I don't remember that year at all." She picked up a pen and started writing on a paper. "I was 29. I remember that birthday." "I was 31. I remember that job interview." "But 30?" She stared at the page. It was blank. Elena began to feel scared. She was not old. She was healthy. How could a full year be missing? Why just that one? Why the same year Riley died? She called her aunt. "Do you remember my 30th birthday?" she asked. Her aunt was quiet. "No, dear," she said. "You didn't invite anyone that year. You were traveling, I think." Elena frowned. "Was I? Where did I go?" Her aunt paused. "I don't know. You didn't talk much that year." Elena called 2 more people. Same answers. No one remembered much. It was like that year had been erased, not just from her life, but from everyone's mind. Elena sat by the window. The wind moved the curtains slowly. She felt cold, lost, alone. She looked at the photo again. Riley's smile was soft. It didn't feel fake. It felt warm. Elena touched it. "Did something happen that year?" she whispered. "Did I forget it? Or did someone make me forget?" She looked up at the sky. Dark clouds were coming. Her mind felt the same, full of questions, and no light. Chapter 3. Riley was dead. Right? Elena sat at her desk, staring at her phone. Her hands were cold. Her mind was full of questions. She opened her laptop and typed slowly. Riley Summers' death news. Dozens of results came up. Some were old news reports. Some were blogs. One headline said, "Young woman dies in car crash, June 2013. Elena clicked on it. The page opened. A photo of a black car appeared. Below it was a short note. It said, "Riley died on a rainy night." The car hit a tree. The driver was found alone. The name on the report was Riley Summers. Elena leaned back. Her heart felt heavy. She remembered that photo. She had cried a lot that week. She remembered the funeral too. The people, the flowers, and the silence. But now, she didn't feel sure anymore. She opened Riley's old profile. It was still there. No posts in years. Last update. At work. Long day. That post was from the day before the accident. Elena scrolled through the comments. Many friends had written, We miss you. One message was from her old classmate. It said, I still don't believe you're gone. Elena paused. That line felt strange. Why would someone write that so many years later? She picked up her phone and called Riley's old number. It didn't ring. This number is not in service, the voice said. She tried again. Same response. Elena closed her eyes and saw Riley's face. Bright eyes, loud laugh, warm hugs. They had grown up together, shared secrets, laughed at silly things. Riley was the strong one, always smiling, always protecting others. But was she really gone? Elena opened a box under her bed. Inside were old letters and photos. She found one from Riley. It was short. It said, You're stronger than you think. I'll always be close. Elena held it close. Were you trying to say something? She whispered. Did you know something I didn't? She took a deep breath and searched again. This time she looked for public records. She typed, Riley Summers' death certificate, but the page said, record not found. She tried again. Still not found. Her heart beat faster. How could that happen? Why was her death not listed? She picked up the photo again. The new one. The one with Riley standing beside her. That smile. That face. That glow. It didn't feel like a ghost. It didn't feel like a dream. Elena whispered to herself, Riley was dead, right? But for the first time, she wasn't sure. Chapter 4. The Cabin in the Picture. Elena sat alone in her car. The photo was in her hand again. She had looked at it 100 times. Every detail now lived in her mind. The old wooden cabin, the green trees behind it, a small round lake beside it, a bench, a small hanging light near the door, a yellow flower pot. She remembered nothing about the place, but something about it made her heart beat fast. It was quiet, still, familiar, like a dream she couldn't fully see. She wanted to go there. She needed to see that cabin with her own eyes. She opened her laptop and started searching. She typed, "Old wooden cabin near lake with forest trees." The results were too many. She clicked one link, then another. Nothing matched. Then she had an idea. She looked at the trees in the photo again. The leaves were long and flat. The trunks were white with gray lines. She searched. Which tree has white bark? The result said, birch tree. She smiled. Then she searched for cabins near birch tree forests and lakes in this state. That helped. After 2 hours of searching, she found a photo on a travel blog. A man had posted pictures of his camping trip. One picture looked very close. The same kind of trees, same kind of lake, same small cabin in the corner. Elena's eyes widened. She clicked on the image. It was a match. The cabin in the blog was the cabin in her photo. The blog said the location was Pinewood Lake, 3 hours from her city. The post was from 2 years ago, but the place still existed. Elena packed a small bag, some water, some snacks, her phone, and the photo. She didn't tell anyone. She got in her car and started driving. The roads were quiet. Her mind was loud. What will I find? She thought. Why do I feel scared? She didn't know the answers, but she knew she had to go. Something was waiting for her there. Something she had forgotten long ago. After a long drive, the trees began to change. They were taller now, brighter. The road became narrow. The air felt cooler. Birds flew across the sky. She saw a small wooden sign, Pinewood Lake, 1 mile ahead. Her heart beat faster. She slowed the car and turned left into a dirt road. It was rough and full of stones. Trees stood tall on both sides. After a few minutes, she saw a small opening. And there it was. The cabin. It stood quietly near the lake, just like the photo. Same brown walls, same old bench outside, same hanging light. It looked empty. No sound, no people, just the wind moving the trees. Elena stopped the car. She stepped out slowly. Her shoes touched the soft grass. She held the photo and looked at the cabin, then back at the photo. It was real. Everything was the same. She walked toward it slowly. Every step felt heavy. Her breath became slow. Her hands were cold. She touched the wooden door. It was rough. She pushed gently. The door opened with a soft sound. Inside, it was dark. She used her phone's flashlight. The room was simple. 1 table, 2 chairs, a shelf, a painting, a small broken mirror. No signs of life, but no dust either. She walked to the window. It faced the lake. She could see her own car outside. She could see the trees dancing in the wind. She stood there in silence. A memory tried to wake up, but it was not clear. Just a shadow, just a feeling. She turned and walked to the shelf. On it was a small wooden box. She touched it. It didn't open. It was locked. She looked around but found no key. She sat on the chair. The silence inside the cabin was deep. But it didn't scare her. It felt like the cabin was waiting for her, like it knew her, like it remembered her even if she didn't remember it. Elena looked up at the wall. The painting was of a lake, the same lake outside, and near the water was a small swing. But there was no swing near this lake now. Maybe there was one before. Maybe she once sat on it. Maybe Riley sat beside her. She closed her eyes. She saw a quick flash. Someone was laughing, then crying, then running away. Her eyes opened fast. Her breath was loud. The memory was gone. But her heart still felt it. She was close to something she didn't understand. She stood up and walked outside again. She sat on the old bench. The wood was cold. The lake moved slowly. A few leaves fell from a tree. The wind touched her face gently. She looked at the cabin again. "I was here," she whispered. "I know I was." But she didn't know when, or why, or with whom. She took one deep breath, then stood up. She picked a small flower from the ground and placed it on the door. "I'll be back," she said softly. "Don't forget me." She walked back to her car. But a part of her had stayed inside that cabin, waiting to remember. Chapter 5. Pieces of Me. Elena woke up before sunrise. The room was quiet, but her mind was loud. She hadn't slept well. Her dreams were strange. She had seen water, trees, and a bench. She had seen herself standing alone. Someone was calling her name, but the voice faded every time she turned around. She opened her eyes slowly. Her pillow was wet. Maybe she had cried in her sleep. She didn't know why. She felt a weight in her chest. Not heavy like pain, but not light like peace. Something in between. Something lost. She stood up and walked to the kitchen. She poured a glass of water. Her hands were shaking slightly. She sat at the table and took a deep breath. She needed answers, but she didn't know the questions. Her memory was not broken. It was just missing. Like a book with pages torn out. Everything before it made sense. Everything after it was clear. But in the middle, there was nothing. She had stopped asking why. Now she wanted to ask where. Where was she during that time? Where were the memories that once belonged to her? She walked to her old bookshelf. It was full of journals. She had always loved writing. She used to write about small things. A good cup of tea, a bad day at work, a kind word from a friend. She pulled out 3 old notebooks. She opened one and flipped through the pages. The writing was neat, calm, but it stopped suddenly. There was no end to the sentences, just a line that said, "I feel strange lately, not like myself." Then the pages were blank. She opened the second notebook. This one was from a different year. It was full of words, long stories, her thoughts, her dreams, her fears. But again, something was off. In one section, she had written, "I know something is missing, but I don't know what." She had underlined that line 3 times. Elena felt cold. She hugged her arms around herself. The room felt too quiet now. She turned on the radio. A slow song played. The words were soft. "Time keeps walking, but hearts stay still." And that line hit her like a wave. She turned off the radio. She didn't want music anymore. She needed silence. She opened her phone and went to the calendar. She checked dates from 12 years ago. Many days were blank. Some had strange notes. Feeling tired. Stayed home. Not in the mood. That wasn't like her. She was always active. She loved going out, meeting people, working. But not in that time. Not in those months. It was like she had paused. She opened an old drawer. Inside were photos, some loose, some in albums. She sat on the floor and spread them out. Her parents, her school, her job. Riley was in many of them, laughing, holding coffee, standing at a bus stop, wearing a green scarf. Elena touched Riley's face in one of the pictures. Her smile felt real, like she could speak any moment. Elena whispered, "Where did you go?" Then she asked herself, "And where did I go?" She closed her eyes. She tried to pull the past closer. Just a small memory, a word, a smell, a place. But nothing came, only flashes. She saw a wall, a flower, a yellow cup, a notebook, a pair of shoes. But they didn't connect. They didn't become a full picture. Just pieces, broken, floating. She opened her eyes. Her breathing was fast. She walked to the window. Outside, a child was playing with her mother. The mother was laughing. The child was pointing at the sky. Elena smiled. Then her smile faded. A thought hit her hard. What if I had a moment like this, and I forgot it? That idea made her chest tighten. What if there were beautiful memories in that missing year? A special day, a moment of peace, a new love, a goodbye. What if she had said something important and never remembered it again? She sat on the couch and covered her face. She didn't cry. The tears had dried. But inside, something was shaking. A quiet storm. She didn't want answers anymore. She wanted herself. She wanted to feel whole. She wanted to remember how it felt to be fully her. She stood up and walked to the closet. At the back, behind some old coats, there was a small box. She had forgotten it was there. She pulled it out. Inside were random items: a keychain, a pen, a folded note. She opened the note. It said only 3 words: "Look behind you." Her body went still. She turned around slowly. Nothing was there. But she knew the note was not a joke. It was something from the past. She put the note in her pocket. Then she found a small mirror. It was old and cracked. She looked into it. Her face looked the same. But something in her eyes had changed. They were searching. Not for beauty, not for age, but for truth. She held the mirror close and whispered, "Tell me who I was, before the world made me forget." She sat on the floor again, surrounded by books, photos, pieces of paper, old clothes. Everything felt like a part of a puzzle, but the centerpiece was still missing. She closed her eyes. She didn't ask for full memories, just one thing, one word, one feeling. She waited in the dark. And then, not a memory, but a voice. Not from outside, from inside. It said, "You were there." Chapter 6. The Journal of Riley. Elena opened the cupboard under her old study table. She had not touched it in years. Dust covered the corners. She cleaned it slowly with a soft cloth. Inside, there were some boxes, some books, and a small suitcase. She opened the suitcase. It was full of old files, some postcards, and one soft red-colored notebook. Her hand stopped. She picked it up carefully. The cover had small flowers on it. On the first page, a name was written: Riley Summers. Her heart skipped a beat. She looked at the name again. It was Riley's handwriting. Neat and strong, she sat down slowly on the floor and held the notebook in her lap. Her hands were cold. Her breath was soft. She opened the first page. The date said January 5th. Nothing more. Just the date and a line. This is just for me. Elena turned the page. The next line said, I don't know who will ever read this, but if someone does, I hope they understand. Elena kept reading. Riley had written about her daily life. She talked about her job, about how busy her office was, about how tired she felt sometimes. She had written about coffee, people at work, her favorite lunch spot, and small moments. Elena smiled. Riley's words felt close, like a soft voice in the room, like a friend sitting beside her. But as she turned more pages, the words began to change. The smile on her face slowly faded. Riley had started writing about feelings, about fear, about confusion. One page said, I'm starting to feel like I'm being watched, but I don't want to scare anyone. Another page said, something is wrong. I can feel it, but I don't know what it is yet. Elena sat still. Her eyes moved slowly. Her heart felt tight. Page after page, Riley had written about strange things. People calling and not speaking, notes left on her desk, her files missing, someone entering her apartment and moving things. She read more. Riley had also written about dreams. Dreams that felt too real. Dreams where she was running. Ding, trying to protect someone. And then she read a line that made her body freeze. I'm scared for her, but I won't let them hurt her. No name. But Elena felt those words like a storm in her chest. She turned more pages. Riley's writing changed again. She had stopped talking about work. Now she only wrote about thoughts, fear, silence. She wrote about not knowing who to trust. One line said, I don't know who I can tell. Maybe no one. Another said, if something happens to me, I want her to be safe. The pages after that were full of small things. Doodles, names, half-written sentences, a drawing of two girls sitting under a tree, a note beside it. That was our favorite place. Elena touched the drawing softly. She felt something warm rise inside her chest. The memory was not there, but the feeling was. One full page had only one line. If I disappear, it's not because I gave up. It's because I chose to protect. Elena could not move for a while. She sat with the notebook in her hands. The air in the room was still. The light from the window touched the cover of the journal. It looked golden. She turned the next page. There were 3 pressed flowers, old, dry, and brown. Under them, Riley had written, For all the days we laughed. Elena closed her eyes. She could almost hear Riley laugh again. That soft, sweet, and full laugh. That laugh that always made the world feel lighter. In the back of the journal was a small pocket. Inside it was a folded note. Elena opened it carefully. The paper was thin and soft. It said, If you find this, you're stronger than I ever was. I hope you live without fear. I hope you remember love more than loss. Elena pressed the note to her heart. No tears came, just silence. But not the silence of pain. It was the silence of understanding, of closeness, of a quiet bond that was never broken, even by time. She placed the journal gently on the table. She did not rush to read it again. She would later, slowly, with care. She knew now that Riley had lived with courage, with fear, with love, and with a promise to protect. Elena felt that promise still alive, in every word, every line, every flower Riley left behind. The room felt full, though no one else was there. And the journal, it didn't just carry Riley's story, it carried a piece of her. Chapter 7. What They Did to Us. Elena sat alone in the quiet room. Riley's journal was on the table. The last few pages had changed everything. For days, she had felt like a stranger in her own life. But now she was starting to see pieces. Real pieces. Scary pieces. Honest pieces. She still didn't know everything. But one thing was clear. Something was done to them. Something that hurt. Something that took time, memory, peace. She opened her laptop again. She typed the name of their old workplace, the company where both she and Riley once worked. The name was still the same, but the website was new, different logo, new faces, all clean, all bright. But she knew, behind those smiles was something else. She looked through her emails. She found one from years ago. It had an old address, not a public one, a special one. A man named Thomas Blake had sent her reports. He was not a friend, not an enemy, just a name from the past. A name she hadn't read in a long time. She opened the old message. Her heart began to race. It said, "You should stop asking questions, Elena. It's not safe." Riley's silence was not a mistake. Learn from her. She read it again and again. Her body went cold. Her hands shook. She opened a drawer and pulled out another folder. Inside were papers Riley had given her long ago, before everything went blank. She never understood them before. But now they felt alive. The papers were marked. Some had numbers. Some had names. One name was circled in red. Victor Linwood. She had no memory of this man, but his name felt heavy, dangerous. She started searching again. News articles, company files, quiet court cases. Slowly, pieces began to show. Victor was part of the old leadership team. He had stepped down quietly. No media, no questions. It looked like nothing had happened. But that was a lie. One news article said, 2 whistleblowers vanish after financial leak rumors. 2. Not 1. Riley and someone else? She sat back and closed her eyes. Something inside her felt loud, like a door unlocking. She saw flashes, a cold room, a man in a black coat, a voice saying, It's your choice or hers. Then everything went black again. She opened her eyes fast. Her heart beat like a drum. What was that? Who said it? She walked to the mirror, looked at herself. Her voice was low. What did they do to me? She asked. And why can't I remember? That night, she could not sleep. She opened Riley's journal again. In the back, one page had only 5 words. They erased her to save her. Elena stared at those words. She didn't fully understand, but it felt close. Too close. She picked up her phone and called an old number. It was Dr. Monroe, a therapist from her past. She didn't know why, but her heart told her to call him. The phone rang once, twice. Then someone picked up. Hello? The voice said. Elena paused. This is Elena Carter, she said. Silence. Then the voice replied. I was waiting for this call. She froze. Why? Dr. Monroe sighed. Because I owe you the truth. Elena sat down. Her fingers held the phone tight. Her voice was steady. Tell me everything. Dr. Monroe spoke slowly. 12 years ago, you and Riley came to me. You both looked scared, tired. You had found something big. It could have destroyed powerful people. You wanted to expose it, but someone was following you. They threatened Riley. She made a plan to disappear, but she didn't want you to live in fear. Elena's lips trembled. So what happened? The doctor said quietly, You agreed to remove part of your memory. Only I could do it safely. I asked you again and again. You signed the paper. You said, I want peace. Riley watched you forget. Then she left. She told me to protect you. Elena couldn't speak. Her heart broke. Her voice was a whisper. She gave up everything for me. Yes, said Dr. Monroe. And she said one day, you'll come back for the truth. Tears filled Elena's eyes. Her breath shook. I want to remember. Right? You already are, he said. That's why you called me. She thanked him, then sat quietly. The call ended, but her thoughts did not. She now knew what happened. They were targeted. They were followed. They were threatened. And Riley had taken the weight of it all. Elena stood up and walked outside. The night was quiet. The moon was full. She looked up and said, I'm sorry I forgot. But I remember now. Not everything, but enough. Enough to know who you were and what you did for me. And deep inside her heart, she felt something return. Not just memory, but strength, love, and a promise to never forget again. Chapter 8. I remember now. The sun was rising slowly. The light was soft. The sky had orange and pink colors. Elena sat by the window and watched quietly. Her hands held a cup of tea. The steam moved up like a slow dance. Her eyes were calm. Her face looked peaceful. Something inside her had changed. Something deep. Something real. She had spent years running from a question. Now she had an answer. not just in her mind, but in her heart. She walked to the mirror. She looked at her face. She saw every line, every scar, every change. But she also saw something else. Her eyes looked different, not confused, not lost. They looked full of truth, full of memory, full of strength. She touched the glass and smiled. "I know who I am," she whispered. That morning, she opened a box. Inside were things she once locked away: old letters, small photos, a key with no tag, a necklace Riley had given her long ago. She wore it again. The silver felt cool on her skin. She sat down and picked up a photo of herself, taken before she turned 30. She was laughing, holding a notebook. Riley stood beside her. They looked young, free, full of fire. She smiled at the photo. "We were strong," she said softly. She opened her laptop. She began writing. Not for the world, not for a book, just for herself. She wrote about the photo that came without a name, about the empty year in her memory, about the strange email, the locked cabin, the notebook, the fear, the silence, and the truth. She wrote for hours. The words came slowly, then faster, like a river. She did not stop. Her fingers moved with power. She wrote what she had forgotten, what she had found, what she would never lose again. In the evening, she walked to the park. The trees were tall, the air was warm, families played, children laughed. She sat on a bench and looked at the sky. She closed her eyes. And then she remembered. Clearly. Finally. She was 30. It was evening. She and Riley were sitting near the water. Tea. Hay had tea in paper cups. Riley looked serious. She said, "Elena, we are not safe anymore, but I know how to keep you safe." Elena had argued, "No, we'll fight this together." But Riley had smiled. "No. You will rest. I will run. That's my choice." Elena had cried. Riley had wiped her tears. "One day you'll remember, and when you do, don't feel guilty. Just live. That's all I want." Elena opened her eyes. Her face was wet with tears. But they were not heavy tears. They were soft, like drops of peace. She placed her hand on her heart. "I remember now," she said. "I remember everything, and I'm still here." She returned home and opened Riley's journal again. This time, she didn't cry. She read every word with strength. She whispered every line with love. She placed the journal on her shelf, not to forget, but to honor. The next day, Elena drove to Pinewood Lake. The road felt familiar. The trees whispered like old friends. The cabin stood quiet, waiting. She parked the car and stepped out. She walked slowly. She touched the door. It opened without sound. Inside, nothing had changed. Same table, same chair, same painting. But now, everything felt alive. She sat on the bench outside. The sun touched her face. The lake moved gently. She took out a new notebook. On the first page, she wrote, "This time, I choose to remember." She stayed for hours, listening, thinking, feeling. She didn't need to chase the past anymore. It had come back on its own. Not in pain, but in soft waves. Not in broken pieces, but in whole, living truth. That night, she sat under the stars. She looked up and spoke to the sky. "Thank you, Riley, for saving me, for believing in me, for leaving just enough for me to find my way." She placed a flower beside the tree. It was white, soft, like peace. She smiled and said, "Now I live for both of us." The end, but not forgotten. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel for more emotional stories like this. Click the like button if you believe love and truth always find a way back. Tell us in the comments, which moment did you feel the deepest? If you'd like to support more stories, you can also send us a super thanks. Every kind word and gesture keeps us going.